There's a certain kind of tiredness that creeps in slowly after 60. It's not the kind you can fix with an early bedtime or an extra cup of coffee. It's a heaviness that settles quietly into your mornings, your afternoons, your bones. You wake up and still feel behind. You sit down to rest and find yourself staying there longer than you planned. It's easy to blame age alone, to tell yourself that slowing down is just part of the deal. But what if some of that exhaustion isn't inevitable? What if some of it comes from habits that slipped into your life so gradually they now feel as natural as breathing? The truth is, many of the things we consider normal parts of daily life can, over time, quietly drain our energy reserves. They don't announce themselves with big warning signs. They don't feel destructive. In fact, most of them feel comfortable, familiar, even necessary. And yet, slowly, steadily, they chip away at our vitality, leaving us wondering why everything feels a little heavier than it used to. Today, we're going to walk through 8 normal habits that might be stealing your energy after 60 without you even realizing it. We'll explore not with blame or guilt, but with kindness and curiosity. Because once you see these habits for what they are, you can begin to shift them. Not with harsh discipline, but with gentle, conscious choices that give you back pieces of yourself you thought were gone forever. Maybe it's something small, like how you start your morning. Maybe it's a pattern in how you speak to yourself, or how you move or don't move through your days. Whatever it is, recognizing it is the first step toward change. Not change to be someone different, but change to feel more like yourself again. Lighter, freer, more fully alive. First, let's begin with one of the most overlooked habits of all. A quiet, creeping pattern that begins the moment we open our eyes each day, often without a second thought. And yet, it sets the tone for everything that follows. Let's start where mornings go wrong before they even truly begin. It's such a simple thing, it hardly feels worth mentioning. A glass of water, a small act, an easy ritual. But after 60, the body's signals for thirst grow quieter. You may wake up feeling stiff, slow, slightly achy, and never realize that some of that heaviness is simply dehydration whispering through your muscles, your joints, your very blood. When you begin your morning with coffee and nothing else, you set your system on a path of running faster than it's ready to go. Caffeine pulls from your reserves. It tricks your body into thinking it's energized, even as it quietly robs it of the fluid it desperately needs to move, to think, to heal. Harriet, 71, realized this after months of waking up exhausted, no matter how early she went to bed. She blamed it on age, blamed it on poor sleep. But when her doctor gently suggested a change, one large glass of water, plain or with a splash of lemon, before anything else, Harriet was skeptical. Still, she tried. 1 week later, her mornings felt different. Her joints moved more easily. Her mind felt a little sharper. The heaviness that greeted her each sunrise began to lift. Hydration isn't a cure-all, but it's foundational. Your blood needs fluid to carry oxygen. Your muscles need fluid to contract smoothly. Your brain needs fluid to fire its delicate signals. Without enough water, every system in your body works a little harder, and you feel it as a background fatigue you can't quite name. And no, coffee doesn't count. Tea doesn't count. They aren't the enemy, but they don't replace the need for pure, life-giving water first thing in the morning. This week, before you reach for your mug, try reaching for a tall glass of water. Feel it wake your mouth, your throat, your chest. Imagine it washing the dust of sleep out of your bloodstream, refreshing your cells, reminding your body that today is a new chance to move through the world with grace. If you've already made hydration a part of your morning ritual and felt the difference, share your experience in the comments. It's often the smallest habits that build the strongest foundations. Now that we've begun with the essential but often forgotten need to start from within, let's move into a second habit that hides in plain sight. The way overscheduling our days, even with good things, can quietly steal the energy we need most. There's a kind of busyness that feels productive, almost addictive. After years of working, raising families, managing households, filling calendars, the rhythm of constant motion can feel like proof that we're still needed, still vital, still living fully. And yet, without noticing, that busyness can cross a delicate line. It can shift from energizing to exhausting, from enriching to depleting, especially after 60, when your body and mind are asking, sometimes pleading, for different kinds of rhythms. It's not about doing nothing. It's about allowing your life to have breath in it. Pauses, gaps between events, between obligations, between even the good things. Without that breath, even joyful activities can begin to feel heavy. What once felt exciting becomes another checkbox, another clock to race against, another source of invisible pressure. Tom, 69, was the king of full calendars. After retiring, he packed his weeks with volunteer work, golf games, museum trips, dinners with friends. He was determined to stay active, stay social, stay young. But 3 years in, he was tired all the time, irritable, prone to catching every cold that went around. It wasn't until he took a hard look at his planner, seeing not a single free afternoon for weeks, that he understood. He hadn't retired from busyness. He had just changed the scenery. When Tom started scheduling blank space in his week's real, intentional breathing room, something shifted. He found himself enjoying his activities again, looking forward to outings instead of dreading them, feeling, for the first time in years, that his days belonged to him, not to an endless parade of shoulds. Energy isn't just drained by doing hard things. It's drained by doing too many things without time to recover, without time for the nervous system to reset, for the spirit to catch its breath. This week, glance at your calendar, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Are there places you can build in an empty afternoon? A slow morning with no agenda? A stretch of time where you decide, moment by moment, what you need most? And if you found ways to balance staying active with protecting your inner stillness, share them in the comments. Your approach might give someone else permission to breathe a little deeper. Now that we've recognized how the pace we set can quietly wear us down, it's time to explore another deeply ingrained habit. One that's often celebrated, but can, over time, quietly erode both body and mind. Let's move there gently. After a lifetime of work, it feels natural to want to sit more, to claim the rest you've earned, to finally allow yourself long afternoons in a favorite chair, long mornings at the breakfast table, evenings curled up with a book or a familiar TV show. And there's nothing wrong with resting. Rest is essential. Rest is sacred. But there's a fine line between restorative rest and the kind of stillness that slowly steals strength from your muscles, flexibility from your joints, and energy from your blood. The body was made to move, not in marathons or grand feats of endurance, but in small, frequent acts of aliveness. Movement circulates blood, lubricates joints, strengthens the heart, clears the mind. Without it, even when you think you're giving yourself a gift of rest, you may slowly be inviting more fatigue, more stiffness, more heaviness into your life than you intended. Eleanor, 74, noticed it after a winter spent indoors, cuddled under warm blankets, reading novel after novel. She loved those quiet hours. She cherished the slow, peaceful days. But by spring, she found her legs trembling after short walks. Her back ached from sitting too long. Her energy, once steady, now dipped unpredictably. She hadn't been lazy. She hadn't been neglectful. She had simply sat too long, too often, without remembering that even gentle movement keeps the rivers of life flowing inside her. Adding small movements back into her days didn't mean giving up the cozy afternoons she loved. It meant punctuating them, standing and stretching between chapters, taking slow strolls around the block after lunch, practicing gentle arm circles while waiting for the kettle to boil. Movements so small they felt almost silly at first, but powerful enough to reignite a sense of steadiness and vitality that had started to slip away. Movement doesn't have to be exercise. It doesn't have to be measured in steps or miles or minutes. It can be as simple as rocking your ankles while seated, stretching your arms overhead every hour, standing up to sway to your favorite song. This week, notice how long you stay seated at a stretch. Notice how your body feels when you offer it just 5 minutes of motion after an hour of stillness. Listen to the quiet thanks your muscles offer when they're allowed to wake up again. And if you found small ways to stay moving, even in the coziest seasons, share your ideas in the comments. The life you protect with small movements is the one that will carry you into the years ahead with more ease, more strength, more joy. Now that we've stirred awareness around stillness, let's move into another common habit, one that feels comforting at first, but can, over time, blur the edges of vitality and steal the clarity and brightness from your everyday life. Let's explore that next. There's a deep, honest comfort in food. It's not just nourishment. It's memory, celebration, ritual. A favorite pie that tastes like holidays long gone. A bowl of soup that feels like a hug from someone who's no longer here. A soft slice of bread that carries the comfort of 1,000 dinners where everyone was gathered around the same table. Food, in its richest sense, ties us to life. But there's a subtle shift that can happen over time. Without meaning to, we begin to lean on food not just for pleasure or sustenance, but for emotional steadiness. We reach for it to fill spaces inside us that have nothing to do with hunger, to soften loneliness, to quiet worry, to bridge gaps between past and present when the days feel too long, the rooms too silent. And when that happens often enough, something else follows. Our energy begins to dull. Comfort foods, especially the ones high in sugar, processed fats, and refined starches, offer a quick, seductive lift, a moment of satisfaction. But beneath that surface comfort, they often create crashes. They spike blood sugar and then plummet it. They flood the body with false signals of fullness and then leave it craving more. They pull the delicate dance of hormones and metabolism out of rhythm, leaving us feeling sluggish, bloated, tired, not just after meals, but in the rhythm of life itself. Robert, 73, noticed this after a year of treating himself more often. Cakes with coffee, pastries after church, fast food on the way home from errands. None of it felt extreme. None of it felt reckless. It all felt normal, earned even. But by spring, he found himself napping more than living. His energy, once solid and reliable, felt like sand slipping through his fingers. It wasn't until a nutritionist helped him connect the dots, food not just as comfort, but as a quiet thief, that he began to gently reclaim his vitality. He didn't give up treats entirely. He didn't ban favorite dishes. He simply shifted the balance. More fresh foods, more color on his plate, more meals that left him feeling awake, not weighed down. More eating to fuel the life he still wanted to live, rather than soothe the feelings he was afraid to face. Comfort food has its place, always will, but when it becomes the main melody instead of a sweet, occasional note, it begins to mute the energy that is rightfully yours. This week, notice when you reach for food out of emotion rather than true hunger. No judgment, just notice. Ask yourself, what am I really needing right now? And is there another way I could meet that need? With movement, with connection, with simple presence? If you found gentle ways to bring more nourishing, energizing foods into your days without losing the pleasure of eating, share them in the comments. We're all learning how to feed not just our bodies, but our whole, vibrant selves. We've reached the midway point in our journey together, and it's the perfect time for a quick pause. If this conversation is resonating with you so far, if you've caught a glimpse of a small change you might want to make, please take a moment to like this video. It helps this community grow, and it tells others that there is still space in the world for gentle, thoughtful conversations about living well after 60. Now, as we continue, let's explore another habit that often hides under the surface, one that wears down our emotional strength even more than our physical one. A habit that many carry without even realizing how heavy it has become. Let's move there now. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from the body at all. It sits in the chest, in the shoulders, in the quiet spaces of the mind that never seem to fully relax. It's the weight of old disappointments, unspoken arguments, lingering resentments that you tell yourself you've moved past, but haven't quite. It's the energy spent replaying old wounds, re-arguing conversations that ended years ago, carrying anger not as fire, but as embers that smolder quietly inside. After 60, after 70, those embers grow heavier. What you could once carry without noticing begins to slow you down, not just emotionally, but physically too. Studies have shown that unresolved emotional stress can increase inflammation, tension, even heart strain. But beyond the studies, you can feel in your own body, in the heaviness that greets you in the mornings, in the sighs that escape without warning, in the sense of fatigue that no nap can fix. Martha, 68, knew this weight well. For years, she carried resentment toward her sister, a tangle of childhood slights, adult betrayals, words said and unsaid. They spoke at holidays, smiled in photos, but underneath, Martha carried the ache, the anger, the sadness, and slowly, it began to wear her down. She didn't sleep well. Her joints hurt more. Her days, even the good ones, felt slightly dimmed. One afternoon, after a particularly restless night, Martha decided to stop carrying it. Not because her sister had apologized, not because everything was neatly resolved, but because Martha realized the cost of holding on was no longer worth paying. She wrote a letter she never sent. She cried harder than she had in years. She told a trusted friend everything she had never said aloud. And in the speaking, in the acknowledging, the weight shifted, lightened, didn't disappear entirely, but became something she could set down, not drag behind her. Forgiveness isn't always a grand, sweeping moment. Often, it's a series of small choices. To stop rehearsing the hurt, to stop feeding it, to make peace with the fact that closure may never come the way you imagined. It's an act of liberation for yourself. This week, ask yourself gently, is there a resentment I'm still carrying? Is there an old weight I keep picking up out of habit? What would it feel like, even just for today, to set it down? If you found ways to release old hurts, whether through forgiveness, therapy, prayer, or simply letting time soften the edges, share your wisdom in the comments. Healing is rarely quick, but every small act of release creates a little more room inside you for life to move freely again. Now that we've touched the deep emotional currents that can sap our strength, let's turn to something that feels smaller, almost silly by comparison, but is just as powerful in its daily effect on your energy. Something so simple, it hides in plain sight, quietly shaping how you move through every part of your day. Let's uncover it together. It sneaks up on you without warning. At first, it feels cozy, spending more time indoors, wrapped in familiar rooms, safe from weather, safe from noise. Mornings spent lingering over coffee, afternoons tucked into a favorite chair, evenings dimmed by soft lamplight. It feels gentle, comfortable, earned. But over time, without fresh air filling your lungs, without sunlight brushing your skin, a different kind of heaviness settles in. A tiredness that no nap seems to cure. A dullness that creeps into your mind and your muscles alike. The body craves light, real light. Not just to see, but to regulate everything from sleep to energy to mood. Exposure to natural light in the morning helps reset your circadian rhythms. The internal clock that tells your body when to wake up, when to feel alert, when to rest. Without it, days begin to blur. Sleep becomes patchy. Energy drops unpredictably. Mood dips quietly, sometimes so gradually you don't even notice until you realize that enthusiasm, that natural brightness you once carried, feels dimmed. George, 70, noticed it after a long winter. He had always loved quiet mornings indoors, but that year, something shifted. He found himself waking groggy, feeling sluggish into the afternoon, losing interest in hobbies he once loved. His doctor suggested a simple experiment, 20 minutes of morning light every day. George started by sitting on his porch with his coffee, bundled against the chill. Then, as the days warmed, he added slow walks, even just around the block. Within weeks, his energy began to rebound. His sleep deepened. His days felt brighter, not just in light, but in spirit. It's not about hiking mountains or spending hours outside. It's about letting your body remember its ancient relationship with the sky, about stepping into the natural rhythms that human beings were made to live by, even before clocks and schedules divided our lives into artificial compartments. This week, try stepping outside within an hour of waking. Let the natural light touch your face, even if only for a few minutes. Feel how your breathing shifts, how your mind clears, how your energy stretches awake again. And if you found ways to weave more natural light and outdoor moments into your routine, share them in the comments. Sometimes the simplest returns to light, to air, to sky are the ones that bring the greatest healing. Having touched on how nature quietly feeds our energy, we'll now explore another hidden habit, one that doesn't just live in the body or the schedule, but in the deep, ongoing conversation we have with ourselves every day. A habit that shapes not just how we feel, but who we believe ourselves to be. Let's go there next. Words have weight, even when no one else hears them. Especially when no one else hears them. The way you speak to yourself, out loud, under your breath, or silently in the folds of your mind, creates the atmosphere you live inside every single day. And after 60, after 70, that atmosphere becomes even more powerful. It can be a place of quiet encouragement, of patience and humor and understanding. Or it can be a place where energy quietly drains away, drop by drop, each time you tell yourself, I'm too old for this, or I'm just slowing down, or I can't do what I used to. The world around you already carries enough noise about aging, enough stories that shrink possibilities, that whisper limits into places where hope still wants to grow. You don't need to add your own voice to that chorus. You don't need to become your own worst narrator. Barbara, 72, realized this shift one afternoon as she tried to learn how to use her new smartphone. Frustrated after a few wrong taps, she muttered to herself, I'm hopeless at this. My brain just doesn't work like it used to. Her grandson, sitting nearby, looked up and said, Grandma, you're the smartest person I know. You just need a little more time. It was a simple moment, but it cracked something open inside her. She began to notice how often she undermined herself without even thinking. How often she turned small challenges into proof of decline. How often she stole energy from her own day before it even had a chance to unfold. Changing the way you talk to yourself doesn't mean pretending everything is easy. It doesn't mean denying real frustrations or pretending there are no changes with age. It means refusing to let your own words be a steady drip of erosion against your spirit. It means choosing to say, this is new for me, instead of, I'm too old for this. This might take practice instead of, I'm hopeless. I'm still learning, instead of, I can't do it. Gentle shifts, gentle kindness, speaking to yourself as you would to a dear friend, a beloved grandchild, someone whose journey you respect, even when it's slow, even when it's messy, even when it requires patience. This week, catch one moment where you're tempted to criticize yourself. Pause, reframe, offer yourself the words you would offer someone you love. Watch how even that small change shifts the energy you carry into the next hour, the next conversation, the next dream. And if you found phrases or mantras that have helped you speak to yourself with more grace, share them in the comments. Sometimes the right words, spoken softly, sincerely, can be the lifeline someone else was quietly searching for. Now, as we come to the final habit, we'll turn towards something that sits beneath all the others. A pattern so common it often goes unnoticed, but powerful enough to either fuel your energy or quietly drain it every day. Let's uncover that last essential piece together. It's easier than ever now to fill our days by consuming. News shows, books, endless scrolling through social media. Information at our fingertips, entertainment on demand, voices and images streaming into our lives from morning until night. And there's beauty in that access. There's comfort, connection, discovery. But there's also a quiet cost when days stack up filled only with what others create. Little by little, a part of us that was made to shape, to build, to imagine begins to grow still. And that stillness is not restful, it's draining. After 60, after 70, the world sometimes treats you as if you're supposed to step back, observe, absorb. But the truth is, creation is a lifeline. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be shared publicly. It doesn't even have to be good by anyone else's standards. It just has to be yours. Leonard, 75, felt the slow creep of emptiness after retiring. He filled his time with good things, reading, watching documentaries, keeping up with old friends online. But something was missing, though he couldn't quite name it. It wasn't until he stumbled into a woodworking class at the community center, making small birdhouses out of scrap wood, that he realized what it was. Krishishern, the spark of making something that hadn't existed before. The simple, grounding satisfaction of shaping raw materials into something real. Creating reawakens parts of your brain, your body, your spirit that consuming alone cannot touch. It reminds you that you are still a force in the world, still capable of bringing something new into it, however small. You don't have to paint masterpieces or write novels. Creation can be baking a new recipe, planting a garden bed, knitting a scarf, crafting a letter to an old friend, piecing together a scrapbook of family memories. It's the act of shaping, building, contributing, even if the only person who ever sees it is you. This week, ask yourself, when was the last time I made something just for the sake of making it? What could I create, however small, that would leave me feeling a little more alive at the end of the day? If you've rediscovered a love of creating, whether through art, food, music, gardening, or any other form, share in the comments. Your story might reignite someone else's imagination, someone who's forgotten how good it feels to bring something new into the world with their own hands. And now, let's gather everything we've explored today into one quiet reflection. First, starting the day without true hydration. Second, overscheduling your days without space to breathe. Third, sitting too much, even when resting feels deserved. Fourth, relying too much on comfort foods for emotional support. Fifth, carrying silent resentment instead of releasing old hurts. Sixth, staying indoors too much and losing connection with natural light. Seventh, speaking to yourself with quiet negativity. Eighth, forgetting to create things, not just consume them. Energy after 60 isn't about fighting time. It's about tending to it gently, thoughtfully, with the respect and care your life deserves. Small shifts, small awakenings, small choices that gather into a life that feels fuller, lighter, freer with every passing season. Thank you for being with us today. If these reflections stirred something in you, give this video a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more thoughtful conversations about living vibrantly at every age. We'll see you again soon.